Today I'm going to show you in this video how to make the Walnut Slouch Pouch. This is a new pattern that I've created, very simple, very easy to make, suitable for beginners and well, anyone else. It makes great gift idea. It's perfect if you just need an overnight pouch for, a change of clothes. You can do top stitching or not. I've used a kind of a schluffy fabric. You could use something more structured if you want it to, or something even more slouchy like a ripstop to make it more like a packing cube pouch. But yeah, I'm going to show you how to make this now. So to make the walnut pouch, you're going to need, at the bare minimum, a main fabric. You're going to have 2 of the side panels, 2 of the top panels and 1 of the main panels. These have all got seam allowance included. This one I'm going to just use a simple overlocked finish. Once you've got everything cut out, you can go ahead and overlock all the raw edges, but for this version I'm going to do an unlined version, so I wanted to make sure that my fabric edges were neat and tidy. So I'm now going to start pinning stuff together, and next up is the zipper. For the zipper I'm actually going to use continuous zipper tape. I'm going to cut it down to size so it fits, and then we'll attach one of these zip balls as well. Once you've got your zipper tape ready, if you're using continuous zipper tape, don't forget to use a lighter to just melt the ends so they don't fray anymore. You can then line them up with the top pieces of the walnut pattern and we can sew them in. When you have one side pinned in place, you can sew that in place. You could baste it if you're a bit nervous, or you could just sew it straight as close to the zipper tooth as possible. Right, I've got the zipper in. You can see that I managed to seal it here, and I need to redo this pin to stop that pull from coming off. I need to find out my top stitching thread so I can top stitch this in place, but that's how it's looking. I'm going to line this one up now and sew this one into place so that we can do the top stitching after. I've got it pinned in place. I'm going to sew this with my zipper foot so that the zip is fully inserted, then we can top stitch it. Here it is, so nice and positioned the whole way. And then the next job for this is to attach this, which is just perfect. Right, I have sewn the continuous zipper tape in place and I've given it a press. Not a great press because this is upholstery fabric. I'm going to find out my orange thread and we're going to top stitch along here, but I'm very chuffed with how it's looking. I've got a pin at the top and a pin at the bottom to make sure I don't actually run off the edge with the zipper, the pull. You can see I have cut it a little bit long. That's perfectly normal because if I do pull it off I might need to have that little bit extra, but it's a nylon zipper so I can easily cut that back. And we're ready. Once I've done the top stitching I can attach the ends and then we can get it onto the main bag piece as well, the slouchy section. And there you have 2 lines of top stitching. Now, ideally this would have been a proper top stitching thread, but I did not have a colour to fit this project. So I went with orange so that it matched the zipper, and I quite like that. It does need to be a thicker thread. If I can track some down, I'll probably sew over that line again. I have attached the one side piece. As you can see, I've pinned it so that the zipper is nicely aligned. Make sure that your zipper's open somewhat because we need to be able to turn it through afterwards. So now that I've got this one here pinned in, I'm going to grab my other one, work out which side you want your stitching. I want it to be like that. And I'm going to pin that in place as well, and then I'll sew the 2 together. Okie dokie. So I've stitched in place the 2 side panels, as you can see. In theory they should also have top stitching, as this piece does too, but I really don't like that thread and I don't have a thicker thread. It's too measly. I need a thicker thread. So I might still unpick this. We'll see. But the ends are in, or the side pieces. Now the final task is to attach it to the main section, and that is going to be a bit time consuming. I'm going to pin it all together and then I'll show you what that looks like before we sew it. Before we do anything, we have to make sure that this zipper is open, because otherwise we're not going to be able to turn it through, and that would be a shame because we've done such a nice job. Something I recommend you do is just transfer the notches for the side panel. So there are obviously, this is the center of it, and then these the 4 corners, and do them for the top and the bottom edge of your main piece because we need those to align this too. So I've aligned the short edge with those 3, the center and the 2. I'm gonna align it and then just stitch between this pin and this pin. So you should have a centimetre seam allowance here and a centimetre here. We're only going to stitch that, and we're going to repeat it for the other end as well. Okay, I'm going to show you, now that we have both of those shorter ends of the side panel installed, make sure that your zipper's open, because after this point, when you sew it, you're not going to be able to do anything else. Either side, we have those pins, one here, one here. Those are going to line up with that seam line where we attach the top sections to the side. So I want you to take that seam and I want you to line it up with that pin, okay? You've got notches in your pattern if you don't know where that goes, so just use the pattern as a reference, pop your pins into place and make sure that it's secure. Okay, I'm not using the best fabric. What you'll see is that this is gathering round because we're forcing this corner here, the right angle corner, we're forcing it into a curve. So you are going to have stuff that looks like it doesn't fit, but it does, because I'm really good at pattern cutting and I did it myself. So just pin everything into place, use as many pins as you need, assuming your fabric allows you to use pins. If it doesn't, use clips. I'm going to make sure that my seam allowance is consistent all the way along, because I did include a centimetre of seam allowance all the way along. When you sew this, just avoid making a pleat there. So we're going to do from that original corner that we sewed. You can do it from the reverse if you need to, but just avoid getting a pleat there. And then you repeat on the other end. So we're going to line up this seam with that pin. Transfer the pin into the fabric to connect the two, and the same thing here. If you need to clip the corner, clip the corner. I avoid that because you weaken the fabric. I'm just going to manipulate it once I get it underneath the machine. If you didn't want to do it this way, you could, I mean, you'd still have to pin it together, but you could use bias tape around the whole thing to finish it as well. And then you're just left with this, and it's just a case of easing it in. You have got notches again if you want to do it properly, which you should do, but it will fit 1 centimetre inwards is where your stitch line is going to be, and that will fit, I promise. And you're just going to pin the whole thing and then sew it. And that is why you need to make sure that your zipper is left open, because once it's pinned and sewn, you won't be able to get in it if it's closed. And you use your fingers. Your fingers are there to help you manipulate the fabric where you want it to go. Oop, I lost my pin. You see how I just gave it a wiggle there? And this is quite a tightly woven fabric. It's an upholstery fabric that I thought was really cool with the print. Curtain fabric, actually, I think. It's got a funny feeling to it. And then the same all the way around. I'm going to do that. You see how it fits nicely together? See? And then I will come back to show it to you prior to me sewing it, so that you can see what it looks like pinned. Okay, it's ready to sew. You can see I've pinned the perimeter. Now I just need to sew it, and then we can turn it through and we'll have a brilliant walnut slouch pouch. Let's do it. You should probably trim all your threads first. So I'm starting off right in that corner, well, a couple of stitches ahead. I'm going to lower my needle, go back 2 stitches, 1 more, and I shouldn't have made a tuck, but you never know. And then I'm just going to continue forward 1 centimetre seam allowance. A little tip is if you have overlocked, typically your stitch line is likely to be at the 0.7 mil. So that means the difference between my needle center line and my actual needle ends up being approximately 1 centimetre, so I can just carry on forth. I feel like I forgot to sew a section, but we're going to carry on. And here it is. I'm just going to turn it through to show you quickly. And there we have it. How gorgeous is that? Beautiful. So I filled the finished walnut slouch pouch with some bits. I wanted to show you how much it can hold. So obviously there's the zipper, and inside it I have got a t-shirt. This is just a generic simple size t-shirt that I had got a couple of years ago from M&S in the UK. We have a large pair of man's socks because I wanted to fill it out. We have 2 pairs of underwear. We have a second pair of socks because sometimes you need spare socks as well. We have another jersey t-shirt, and we have a pair of trousers, me made ones. And I'm not a small person, so I'm quite tall and I'm quite wide. So you can see that actually the slouch pouch does hold quite a bit. That's just an example. If you wanted to take it with you for, like if you wanted to use it as an overnight pouch. You can also use it for other things, putting your electrics in, like your cables and things, or your art materials, or maybe some yarn and crochet hooks. There's so many ways to use this, and it's an easy make. It would also make a great gift idea as well. And that is the finished walnut pouch. I'll leave a link to the sewing pattern in the description below, and I'll pin it in the first comment as well, so that if you'd like to make one for yourself or maybe as a gift for others, you can grab the pattern. Thanks so much for watching. Take care, and I'll see you in my next video very, very soon. Bye.